All right, welcome to the first podcast for the Celluloid Misfits. This is...
Celluloid Misfits presents Two Poofs in a Podcast.
Two Poofs in a Podcast. I had to double check there what it was called. I didn't want to say anything offensive. Okay.
Well, we're two Poofs and we're doing a podcast.
We certainly are. We're not lying about it.
No.
Well, I am. I'm lying now on the sofa, just enjoying it while Mark is sprawled over two seats. Until we can afford another couch.
We do have two couches in there.
We do. We should have done it there. I actually feel like I'm at a psychiatrist's office the way we're set up
I
here.
know, right? It does feel very formal. But I needed to be facing you to talk because if we were side by side, it would feel like we're doing a video.
Very much
rather
so.
than
and if
chatting.
we, by the end of it, it may be like a psychiatrist's office.
Yeah.
You never know.
Could be good therapy for the both of us.
Very much so. Needed therapy.
Yeah.
So what we're going to be doing with Two Poofs in a Podcast is discussing everything film, basically. We're going to talk about directors and actors.
Yeah.
We're going to discuss different genres, the likes of the Girls with Guns genres from Hong Kong, 21st Century Chan on all the movies of Jackie Chan post-2000, LGBT cinema, race representation in cinema, 80s action stars, women in film, and much, much more.
Yeah.
So that's going to come hopefully every week we'll get this out because it's much easier to create one of these quicker for listeners and for fans rather than editing video. Not that the video stuff will stop, obviously. We still have Screen Queens coming up, nice packages, movie reviews, trailer reactions, and much more. So I think then we can start this by talking about what makes us the movie fans that we are.
Properly,
to those who are new listeners, we could discuss who we are.
Yes, I think that's a good place to start because there'll be some people who will be podcasters and not vloggers.
Very much so. Yeah. Well, this is new to me. I've never been one for listening to podcasts. I suppose I've never found the right one either.
Yeah,
but
it's hard finding a good podcast.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's never been on my radar. I've very much been a visual person and always wanting to see something. But yeah, so Mark, who are you?
Well, you've just said it. So yes, I'm Mark.
Hey, Mark.
For those of you who won't know or who are listening to this on Spotify that don't follow us on Instagram or YouTube, my name's Mark. I was, but I suppose I can still say I am. I was a film critic with a local magazine, and have been doing that for about 5 years, and have an Instagram page called Head Over Reels where I was doing a lot of movie reviews and things like that. But it was primarily movie reviews, not so much movie news. But that's who I am. That's what I did. I've been a movie fan for so many years now, that it made sense for me to take an organically natural step towards branching out and using my voice as a movie, not just as a movie fan, but as a professional to in other arenas, in other ways, be it video, blog, whatever, or podcast in this case that we're doing right now. So that's who I am. Yeah. Would you like to introduce yourself, my sir?
Myself, I am George Clark.
Do you want to do it in your own voice?
I'll do it in my own voice because I'll tire very quickly of that.
Yeah.
George Clark, yes, I am the man behind Yellow Fever Productions. I've made 7 feature films, a host of other movie projects and film projects. I have loved film from, the day now we got a video player, which I remember at age 5, and that's when I found Jackie Chan and became hooked on the Hong Kong film genre, which, as we sit among my 3,000 plus collection of Asian movies, it'll always be my lifelong love, and that's what really got me hooked on film. And that's what inspired me to get into movie making, I suppose. But from that, I've always been a creative person, so I've always wanted to bring my knowledge on this genre to long before YouTube, but to people, to spread more knowledge about it before the internet was able to do that much easier than I could. So the likes of writing a book or, discussing it with friends or hosting viewing parties, things like that. It was always something I wanted to promote. And
love a good viewing party.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's always great to to get this new release in from Hong Kong and kind of think or know you were the only one in the country with it, as you would think 20 or 30 years ago, and invite so many people round to watch it. So I mean that really spurred my love for film, and from there it's obviously expanded into so much more. And as a movie maker now of 12, 13 years of being in the business making feature films, it has taken me down many different routes of being a speaker or a guest. It's something that's opened up so many other doors for me to, well, basically discuss my knowledge.
Did you go into like as a guest lecturer and stuff?
And from Northern Ireland to New York and all over. So it's really taken me on a whole big journey, which is great. And just due to the whole COVID situation, it's rested for the last year. But and of course then I run the Yellow Fever Film Festival and Sandbar International Film Festival, and there's so much more behind that all. But film is basically me. That's what I love.
You are film.
I am film.
We are film.
We are film. Yes. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just being regular. We're just not just nerdy movie fans that go to the cinema or sit at home and watch TV all day. We do get involved on many different levels. So
we try.
We try.
You more so than me. I mean, as you know, my experience of film has primarily been in front of the camera. You know, acting. I'm not an actor by any stretch of the imagination. I did a lot of stage stuff whenever I was younger and I did TV adverts for BT and radio adverts for BT Cellnet and things like that there. So I've always kind of been on this precipice of what side of entertainment I really find the most
interesting.
No.
For you,
yes,
more so.
The most.
We see that's where I love the creative process. I like to. I mean, for me to write to take something from my head and to go into HMV and see it on the shelf is amazing. Yeah, it's huge. But at the same time, I'm still looking for the best bargain that I can find, so then I can afford to put petrol in my car. Yeah, but it's it's not the glitz and glam Hollywood lifestyle of a filmmaker. I just want to make movies for my enjoyment, as opposed to a commercial way of making movies.
But there is there's a sense of fulfillment there that you, as a creative, as a film lover, that, as you say, that you get to a point where I would have a lot of ideas. I struggle writing down those ideas sometimes, but they're always in my head. But I think it does come to a natural crossroads where that intersection between creativity and passion kind of have to merge into doing something about it. Oh yeah, you've taken those two paths that are running parallel together. Eventually, they're gonna have to, like any river or any crossroads, meet at some stage.
Well, for example, I have not had a day of film education in my life. I couldn't get into university or colleges, and especially 25 years ago when I left high school, I couldn't afford to do that, and it was really London or New York or LA you had to go to achieve that. So I had to push myself into doing this and just pick up a camera and go out there and do my own thing. Whereas today, things seem to be a little bit easier for people to get into, and especially even in this country, even in Northern Ireland, there's a lot more film schools on offered and colleges that give those options.
Huge progression.
Whereas I didn't have that, so yeah.
Whereas I did. I went and I did media studies, as a vocation, I suppose, if you want to call it a vocation, and I never took it into a vocation, into work. Yeah. I did work on a documentary once, many years ago, but I studied it. Yes, so how to white balance your camera, how to adjust your audio, how to filter in your filters, to sepia tone your picture, how to edit.
So you got a taste of what you could do with that.
Yeah, and I mean it fueled a little bit, but I think by the time that kind of came around personally, which we won't go into because it's not a personal podcast, but I think personally, by the time I actually made it to that point in my life
Yeah.
where I was studying, my confidence had been so broken down
Yes.
that even with the knowledge and the confidence of, doing radio and learning about, radio stations, how they operate, how videos operate, how to hold a camera, how to use the camera, shots, white balance, all of this thing, my confidence was so badly knocked that I never took it.
You never went with it.
And because on your own you feel quite isolated and you never know whether people are going to take you seriously whenever you do it. And you probably felt that at the start.
I still get that 13 years later, but at the same time we've proven ourselves and we know we're given, yes, we're doing amazingly low budget to no budget movies, but they're still getting out there on DVD and VOD around the world. They're still winning awards, and we're still, obviously we're doing something right, but we're not giving you Iron Man 6, or we're not doing it, we're not
not yet.
not yet. But the point is, you sort of have to have that self-belief that you can do it. And with my first project, I just told everyone I'm making the biggest movie in the world, and that was in my head then to do that, and that's how we got through it. So I came together with this fresh team, and we basically made this.
And it's an independent feature when you look at Battle of the Bone as an independent feature in a country that is not known for producing movies really at all.
Feature. Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Oh yeah,
it was a hugely big deal. To have all of those zombies.
There was 300 people in it.
I mean, that's what I mean. There was such a huge cast of extras and. Loads of really cool locations. You got city centre. We shut the town down. Yeah,
basically,
That's a big deal for a first time independent filmmaker in somewhere like Northern Ireland, who
don't have a clue what to do.
Who just don't facilitate creatives the same way that London and the UK or America or other places in the world do. Even you go to the Philippines, they're accommodating filmmakers better than they are here in Northern Ireland. But I think one of the primary reasons why Northern Ireland filmmaking is probably making leaps and bounds now is primarily down to HBO's kind of involvement. And
once Hollywood came in, then everyone started noticing.
Yeah.
And I like to challenge that. I like to prove that we still have our own talent here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I like to fight the big guns there.
HBO did use a lot of local people for set design,
totally.
all of that kind of stuff. But it took a company like HBO and a show like Game of Thrones to come here and film here for people to start utilising the area,
of course,
the way it could be.
Well, we were already doing that, but in the background.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and not getting the same kind of exposure.
Well, that kind of starts that leads into then the first question that I would say is what makes us movie fans and cinephiles? And we've kind of briefly hit on that, but what makes a cinephile? What is?
I mean, we touched upon this, and I kind of said that cinephiles are. It's hard to define what a cinephile is because people have this. Kind of preconception of what it means to be a cinephile. I think they're taking it back as much as they will take it back to times whenever, especially like the French New Wave and things came in.
Yes.
Whenever movies were being opened up to not just Hollywood features, they were opening up world cinema, and then that kind of became what a cinephile was.
Yes.
Someone who watched a lot of different films from all over the world, and they studied Fellini.
The subtitle came out.
The subtitle, yeah, absolutely, and that is where a lot of people, I think, believe that. But that's what makes them a cinephile.
Yes,
they've seen a film like Come and See, from Russia, or they've seen a Wong Kar-wai film.
It's like if they go through that book, 1001 movies to see before you die.
Absolutely,
yes. And then that gives them their right to say they're a cinephile.
I've seen all 1001 films. I'm a cinephile.
Yes, right.
And that I think that's a very kind of Siskel and Ebert time of things. And as much as people think that they're moving forward, they're not kind of really thinking about what makes them a cinephile. So we touched upon this the other day in conversation, just in passing, the two of us. For me, what defines a cinephile I suppose what world would it be? The movie lover's world, I guess.
I suppose. I mean, the cinema world. Yeah. The cinematic world.
The cinematic world.
Yes.
What stereotypically defines it and what personally defines it are two very different things.
Yeah.
And I think that you should always go with what personally defines, because if you run with a preconceived notion of what a cinephile should be, you're never going to fully enjoy film.
No.
Because not everyone's going to like a film by Fellini, by Wong Kar-wai, by, Choi Sang-chi or Choi Hark or any of those directors.
It's something I've always said, is that any form of entertainment is a personal thing.
Absolutely, yes.
So
and you
shouldn't need to resort to those kind of books to want to claim to be something
cinephile.
like a cinephile.
I think that's where it is. It's that people want to claim to be these experts and these cinephiles.
Yeah.
For me, what I think a cinephile is someone who is driven by a passion and love for film.
Oh, yeah.
Any kind of film.
Yeah.
That they can sit and they can watch. And also that they're interested in the process. They're interested in the stories behind the films. They're interested in the stories of how the films are being made.
Yeah.
The drama of it.
They understand the
work
work involved.
but also the history of cinema as well.
Yeah.
That's what makes you a cinephile. I think if you go into film and you have no history of movie, so where they started, like in the Nickelodeon theatres and the birth of Hollywood cinema and Bollywood cinema and all of those things, you really can't call yourself a cinephile, because what you're really basing it on is solely on what you're watching. You have no knowledge.
Well, that's the thing. My collection. Let's say, for example, in the house there, I have 1917, which is a phenomenal modern masterpiece, really, sitting next to my Charlie Chaplin collection, which to me are still masterpieces.
Of course they are, yeah.
And there's such a wide range, and you will find a lot of people will refuse to watch maybe something 20 years before their time, or it's like,
or they'll watch it and they'll downgrade it.
Yes, they'll compare it to the latest MCU
because
project,
of what they're getting. And this is kind of where this kind of woke movement or snowflake generation comes in, and it's not to offend anybody, but I think that for me, where it sits with me, and where I've never had the chance to vocalize kind of my real knowledge of cinema, is that whenever I was growing up, my parents would have been, like, well, what do you want for Christmas? And I'd be like, oh, I want, like, the history of MGM, or I want, the history of cinema, or can you get me, like, a book on the making of Jaws, because obviously this was pre-DVD days. I hate to admit it, but it was. It was, I was living in VHS era at that time. And they were buying me these books that helped me to understand, how much a film cost back in those days, how they made films, building sets, the studio system, how the studios worked, contract players, all of that kind of things.
Exactly.
Because that's such a vital part of cinematic.
That was back then. That was our DVD extras. That was our Blu-ray extras. Were books like that.
Absolutely.
And hence my collection of those kind of
books.
books.
I have so many, books.
That was our insight as to how the magic of movies was made.
Absolutely. And for me, that was part of, that's part of what made me into, if I want to classify myself as a cinephile, which I'm not really comfortable doing, because I think it's quite pretentious in a way.
Yeah, I wouldn't never use. I don't think I would use it per se.
No,
I couldn't use it because it's not.
I couldn't take myself serious.
I would say movie fan, a massive movie fan, before I would say a cinephile.
But I think that people want to identify in that way, and that's perfectly fine. Whenever they're online, they want to be part of the cinephile community, and that's fine, because it's a great hashtag. Brings in a lot of views and whatever. But for me, being a cinephile, if you want to term yourself that, it's about having knowledge and understanding of everything that makes film and television work. Yeah, exactly. Not just the entertainment, but on the flip side of that, it's a personal preference. Yeah, you 100%. can be a cinephile and absolutely love the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, just as an example, because I don't know. Yeah, I mean, because it's a personal preference. You can appreciate the animation style, the writing, the characterization, the color, all of those things, you know, you're not just seeing it as entertainment, you're seeing it as an overall product.
I am, and I always that's the thing for me. What would make a cinephile is understanding that you can jump from having SpongeBob the movie as a favourite and then jumping to the likes of 1917 and
or Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yeah,
if you want
what I mean is there's so many different eras and genres of movie that can be your favourites, and but that wide scope of everything allows you to become more of a cinephile.
But it's also allowing yourself to organically find your way as a movie fan. You know, I find that recently with Parasite making such a massive jump, leaps and bounds in terms of, you know, award season. I mean, it was the first ever foreign language film to win the Academy Award for Best Picture.
Yeah, right.
And it took that for people to then be interested in watching foreign language films and to make it more mainstream.
Well, more so
whereas back in my day, whenever I was growing up, they were seen as more art house pieces.
Yes.
So whenever you were interested in watching 8.5 or La Dolce Vita or Come and See or War and Peace, you know, those types of films, or even films by
the likes of
Louis
Crouch and Tiger, Hidden Dragon kind of dipped its toe in that and almost kicked off a bit of a love for foreign movie, but it kind of didn't last.
No, it kind of slipped away again.
Yeah, once that kind of House of Flying Daggers, you know, but it took about 3 or 4 years, and you know, then it kind of went. And I think for me, the reason behind that was that Hollywood saturated it. Then they wanted a piece of it, and they brought it into their movies, and it all became about.
But that's what they do.
Hollywood, yeah, of course they do.
That's what they do. Yeah. But the point is, it's all about personal preference.
Yes.
If the main word and the most prominent word as a movie fan, as a movie lover, that you need to have in your vocabulary is passion and love. Those are 2 words, so apologies. It's not one word. Those are 2 words.
Yeah.
It's passion and love.
Pick one.
If you have passion and love for film, you're a cinephile. You're a movie fan, regardless of what the genre is. If you like 80s, if you like, for example, myself, 90s action films with Van Damme, Seagal, Schwarzenegger, Stallone.
Yeah.
I'm still a movie fan.
Yeah, of course you are.
You know, because I have so much passion and love for those films. I want more people to watch them. Whenever I see younger people being like, "Oh, I just watched RoboCop." I know that's 80s, but I've just watched RoboCop for the first time. I'm like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear what they think."
Exactly.
And whenever I hear that they love it, I'm like, "Yes!" You know, it holds up. It's a good film.
Yeah,
you know?
That's the thing. I mean, I think there's also an age. There's an age thing with most. I'm starting to sound old, but there's an age thing with most people, and they do hit a particular time in their lives when they will accept those kinds of. It's like my son tells me the music that I listened to was shite, and now when I hear him in the shower listening to his music, it's the exact same music that he told me was crap.
Yeah.
And he's listening now to it, and he's getting on as if he found it.
Yeah.
Have you heard this? Have you ever heard about this? You know, and I the same was with some of our younger actors throughout the years. They would, here, have you heard about this guy from 1970 such, and have you heard of this 80s singer? You know, and that seems to be an age thing that as the older they get, they will accept.
Well,
that
I actually think it's sometimes the opposite. I think with age, you obviously mature.
Oh yes, yeah.
But you become very much, I suppose, a prisoner of your own taste. For want of a better term. Whereas when I was growing up back in the early 90s, staying over at my grandmother's house, we had TCM on quite often. Turner Classic Movies. Great channel. So whenever I was young, I was watching Casablanca, Rio Bravo, Gone with the Wind.
Funny what I said, but my nan, I was the same. But we would watch the same sort of things.
We watched those films, Sound of Music, you know,
westerns. Lots of westerns.
Grips of Rap. Lot of John Wayne was in that house, in my grandmother's house. But there was such a varied. And then whenever I came home to Mum and Dad's, it was Jurassic Park.
Yes.
It was Speed. It was Die Hard and
RoboCop. Modern stuff.
Yeah. So I think that with no internet, with no kind of social media, I was allowed that freedom to kind of just fall in love.
Yeah.
You know, because for me at that time, and it's kind of fallen away very much because of certainly with the advent of social media and with the internet dominating our lives. I think that escapism has do you know what I mean?
I totally get it. I think
has vanished.
But
almost.
also younger audiences today are coerced into watching a particular thing because of the internet. All their friends are on there and they're promoting it, and you see
Absolutely.
the chats and the Instagram posts or the Facebook posts of a particular movie that you're pushed into, and that's why a lot of things get missed. A lot of great things get missed,
or why a lot of things I think people end up diminishing.
Yeah,
because they have grown up, and I think that's why I suppose I would consider myself much more of a cinephile than other people that call themselves cinephiles, even though I don't like to identify as a cinephile. Because I know, because there was no influence.
Yeah.
It just was what it was.
Yeah.
You know, there was nobody saying, this is a great film, watch it.
Every month I would buy one magazine, Impact Movie magazine.
Yeah.
And every month I would buy that, and that would be my insight to what was coming from Hong Kong especially, but also out in American cinema and so on.
Yeah.
But
I did that with Empire and Total.
Yeah, but it wasn't so much as an influence, but a form of excitement as to what was coming. It was almost like a trailer on paper, because I wouldn't get to see trailers for those kind of movies. The internet, I think, has really...
The internet has allowed so many people to voice an opinion, whereas back... especially whenever I was growing up with Empire magazine, I never missed a month of either Empire or Total Film. You were taking
That's boxes of Impact magazine.
Is it actually?
Yes.
That's amazing.
From 1994, January 1994 until it finished its last issue. That's them all boxed.
Incredible. Well, I never missed an issue, and I think it was less prejudicial than it is today. And I don't read it anymore because I find that it's lost a lot of
what
a
new generation
it is
writers,
a new generation of writers.
Yeah.
And I actually liked it more for the what's coming up or the behind the scenes segments of being on them getting to go and be on the set and interview actors.
Yeah, it was exciting.
That was the exciting part. The reviews were good, and I was always interested to see what they give 5 stars to. I do remember whenever the first Lord of the Rings came out, and I was like, oh my goodness, and then it was like both Total Film and Empire gave it 5 stars, and I was like, oh my god, they agree! It was a huge thing. If that was released today, you'd have people that were like 1 star, people that were 5 stars, whereas you just had these 2 places, 3 with Impact. There's a lot of other magazines, movie magazines out there at the time, but you had kind of something to compare it to that wasn't so vast. But it wasn't leading either. Whenever you read it, it was very much... it was one person's opinion, but they tried to make it as subjective as they possibly could. And that's what I really enjoyed about film magazines. It wasn't like, I think this. It was, this film is made blah, 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 and it lacks blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
That's how I write as a reviewer. I always try and take... And I think a lot of people now, whenever I read on Instagram, do things on a personal level, which is fine. But I think if you want to be a professional critic, you need to be subjective.
Of course.
You can be objective as well, absolutely, because that's the whole point. If you objectively watch a film and you hate it, that's fine. But you need to look at it subjectively as a whole, as a product, because it's not just a film; it's a collaborative piece of art that people have come together to create.
Yeah, when I'm reviewing, the thing for me is, I know the work goes into things now. Having made 7 feature films, I know what that took out of me for a no-budget 90-minute movie. And so to understand what goes into something that's obviously much bigger than what I can offer, I can take that in, and that's part of what I need to balance my reviews on, is understanding that is much more than just watching something for 90 minutes and easily, saying yay or nay to it. It's just...
But you use the right word, balance. And understanding. That is what it's about for me. That's what being a movie fan is about. It's the balance of entertainment and the understanding of how it was made. And that's what makes you a real movie fan. I think because you want to you want to sit back, you want to enjoy, you want to get lost in these worlds, in these characters, in these moments, but you also are so intrigued and so, what word am I looking for? So,
captured by it all?
Well, more, not so much captured, but you're so determined that you're like, oh, how did they do that?
Yeah,
and you know that
it's the magic.
Well, you don't want the magic to
Yes.
be disrupted because you become so invested in it. But you still are like, how the hell did they do that?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And that's where balance and understanding comes in.
Well, that
for me,
actually takes it into the next question, which it's kind of, you've kicked that off again. Is
Sorry.
how has the film world changed? Because from watching movies as kids, now obviously we have a very different understanding as children, and to us then they're much more magical, and we can get lost in them deeper.
Do you know what the main reason for that is? The internet.
Of course it is. Yeah.
You know, nowadays you're saying that there was anticipation. I remember, and bring it back to Lord of the Rings because it's the first, and Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Those were the two kind of big films I remember going to see in the cinema. Not because I'm that young, I'm actually older than that. I was about maybe 10, 11, 12 whenever they came out. But I remember I was able to go and see them in the cinema and understand it more. I was able to concentrate better than I was as a child. Watching Jurassic Park, I was watching it for the dinosaurs. I wanted to be a paleontologist when I was a kid, not a filmmaker. I was like, oh my god, dinosaurs! I can like dig up bones. Honestly, that's what I wanted to be. I was like, I want to be a paleontologist. But then it's like...
But they were inspirational as a child. Movies are inspirational.
Yeah, and even Disney. Those Disney films give you inspiration and hope. And I know people are like, oh, fuck. Whenever you get older, you're like, oh, Disney ruined my childhood. They told me love would be this and life would be that. Well, do you know what? There's nothing wrong with escaping into Disney and enjoying that.
Exactly.
But I do remember, what was the question?
The question was how has the film world changed?
And I said it's down to the internet. So... whenever Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace, and whenever Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring were coming out, I remember there was really nothing for me to, nothing for me to explore. I couldn't go onto the internet and type it in.
Yes.
I couldn't go onto Instagram, flip through and see behind. I was waiting for Empire to do like a couple of behind the scenes photographs and be like, oh. And then whenever I went, I did not know what to expect.
Yep.
It was like, phew. And that's what was so... And I always say that even like the Phantom Menace, I have such a soft spot for it because there's so many amazing moments in that film.
And
it's not a great...
But it reminds you of a good...
reminds me of a good
You've watched it
time.
at a time that, you enjoyed.
Whereas now, when we go onto the internet, we go onto social media, we go onto Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and whatever.
Everyone has a voice.
Everyone has a voice. There's always some behind the scenes. There's always people being interviewed and giving away clues and whatever. There was none of that when we were growing up.
There's always some arsehole ruining it for you.
Absolutely.
He's putting out crap after crap after crap.
Absolutely.
Or already judging a film before it's
even released. Yeah, absolutely. And that just did not happen when we were growing up.
No, it really didn't.
You've seen a trailer on a VHS and you were like, oh, I want to see that.
I think that for me is why I got hooked on Hong Kong cinema at a young age, because it was a brand of movie that wasn't really available to everyone.
Yeah. And
nobody could ruin that for me, in a sense.
Yeah.
For me, it was exciting to know that I may just be the only person with this copy of the latest Jackie Chan movie, or finding an ex-rental that is so hard to get that, that for me was an incredible... I mean, if I had a time machine, I would be back in that time now, getting around every video store, without a doubt. It wouldn't be trying to save the world, it would be getting to the video store.
Yeah.
But that for me was a kind of movie that nobody else could talk to me about. So it was exciting, and that was my own little thing, my own little secret. And then when I eventually met 1, 2 or 3 people who knew about them, then it was even more exciting to talk about what we'd watched, rather than try and ruin something else for it, or for you, to kind of get into the next one from that actor, or the sequel to the movie you've had for years but never knew there was a sequel to.
Yeah.
I suppose in a sense, as you're saying, nowadays you do go on there but I try to avoid looking at movie news, and
it's hard to...
Not movie news so much, but movie reviews from just the general public.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. Yes, everyone has a voice, and
Everyone
everyone is allowed to say what they want.
Yeah.
But some people just go above and beyond trying to ruin your experience in
100%.
not understanding what's involved and what that movie is all about,
Or not understanding the themes.
Yeah.
Finding the effects dated, whatever the case may be. You got to understand things are moving forward rapidly.
Oh, very.
I mean, one of the main reasons that one of the things, the main reasons that the film world has changed has been streaming. How we access film.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, I think. So how we access film is very different. I mean, we're talking about video stores, so people are going to be like, what the hell is that? There probably will be someone that'll be like, what's a video store? And it's how we accessed our films back then was having to, they came out in theatres. You only really got a trailer maybe on TV on like Channel 4. Anyone that had, we only had 5 channels here in the UK.
Well,
whenever I was growing
I only
up.
had 4. So
okay.
Yes, yeah.
So, I do remember when Channel 5 launched. I was, when Spice Girls launched the Channel 5. I'll never forget it. But, the only channels that you ever got trailers on were Channel 4 and possibly UTV or ITV, because we had UTV, we didn't even have ITV here.
Yeah.
So UTV may have put on a trailer, but it was mostly Channel 4. You never really got a trailer, or when you went to the cinema
and
to
you
watch
got the
a
ones
film.
Before.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true, and they weren't all drink driving commercials and then followed by this alcohol commercial.
No.
It was actual film trailers.
Yeah, they actually put the trailers out there. And it got you anticipated, and then the only way you could see that was by going and plonking your arse in the seat in the cinema, because otherwise you then had to wait 10 months for the video to come out, the VHS to come out to rent.
Oh yes,
and then a further 6 months to buy the bloody thing.
That was the thing that always annoyed me about videotapes here and video releases. Is that we were always so far behind what America was getting.
Good God, weren't we half?
Ridiculously so. Whereas today, they're releasing them on television and on the big screen at the same time, on streaming services and the big screen.
Yeah.
So what a jump, massively.
It seems like a massive jump. I mean, I think I'm 32 and I can still remember the days of going into Thornley Video was my local, but, we had...
I actually have some ex-rentals there, believe it or not, in that Kung Fu section from Thornley.
From Thornley Video?
Yes.
I mean, was my local, gotta love Thornley Video. It was great. I will never forget, it was every single weekend. We sat as a family, we got a Chinese. I used to sit, I was much smaller and skinnier, and I used to sit on the floor with like my legs spread, like you can't, nobody can see what I'm doing, but it's like spread out like that there, like wings. Sitting on the floor eating my Chinese, we watched... Noel Edmonds' House Party.
Yeah.
We watched Gladiators.
Yes.
And then we watched the 2 movies that we picked at the video store.
Yeah.
And one had to be suitable for my sister, one had to be suitable for me. And then sometimes Mum and Dad would have got like another rental for whenever when we went to bed.
Yeah.
When my sister went to bed. But I remember waiting for Friday night to come.
Oh, yeah.
So that we could bomb it to Thornley.
And try and get the new releases.
And get in. Because I will never forget, the one film that I was always dying to see was Starship Troopers. It was released in 1998 in theatres, and I was just too young. It was rated 18, so back then you could not accompany a child to an 18 film.
Yes,
You weren't allowed to do it. You weren't allowed to take anybody under age 18.
Very strict here. Yeah.
So I remember whenever I remember reading about Starship Troopers, being obsessed. I was obsessed with Denise Richards. I was like thinking I was straight, but I wasn't. I think I just appreciate the female form for what it is. I was obsessed, and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for this film to get released.
Yes.
Then Thornley Video put up the poster in the window, and I was like, oh, I can't wait. And I remember going on that Friday, and I was like, we got out of school at 3, and I went home. Dad didn't get home till 5, so he was still working at the time. And it was like 6 o'clock. It was like, we're going to get the Chinese and then Thornley Video. And I was like, we're going to Thornley Video first. And I remember, like, literally
running,
bombing it into Thornley Video. And they used to have it. Do you remember video stores whenever they had like a film like, say, this is just a film I'm using for example. Penelope Cruz did a film in the late 90s called Women on Top. It was a comedy where she worked as like a chef. They had one of Women on Top, and then they would have had like 6 Starship Troopers.
Well, I managed a video store for about 3 or 4 years.
Of course you did, yes.
So, yes, and I know when we got every Friday morning, when we got the new releases in, and I had to then, get them into their rental covers and whatnot, and and sticker everything. Yes, that would be quite a noticeable thing until they got to the point where I would be hired as such to pick the titles that we were buying in. So I was given 40 grand every week to play with, to spend on movies, on rental movies. And then that's when I started shaking those numbers up a wee bit. Because yes, there was certain titles that you might have got one in, but it may have been a cracker title, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And then you maybe got 10 copies of Electra. Why?
I remember going into Thornley Video and there literally being an entire row from one wall to the next of Titanic. And that first night it was released, couldn't get one.
No, gone.
But it was the same with Starship Troopers. I was gutted. Yes. I was so angry. I was furious. I was like, oh my god, I cannot believe this. I waited 9 months when this was in the cinema to go out to get it. I was so pissed off. I stormed out. I was so angry. Dad ended up picking, I think, like 3 Ninjas or something like that there, because we loved the 3 Ninjas movies growing up. Strike Back or whatever the one it was. We just bounced through them. And throughout the week then we kept an eye. But I remember getting it, and then every Friday being blown away by this film that I'd waited so long to see on a TV that literally you couldn't even fit into the back of the car anymore because they're so boxy.
Yes, that's right.
And probably shitty sound, but just being so blown away by this film. And I'm using it as an example because it's the first one that I was really so G'd up to see.
Yeah.
But there's another reason behind it as well, is because it was rated 18.
Of course, yeah.
It was like the forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
You're 12 years old and your parents are letting you watch an 18.
Yes.
Boy, oh boy, you were the coolest person in the class.
Well, the thing that's, back in the 80s, it was a wee bit more, I suppose, flexible because, we were watching Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 8 years of age. It scared the bejesus out of me, and it always did for a long time. But yes, every Friday my rentals would always have been Armour of God with Jackie Chan and The Last Dragon. Do you ever remember The Last Dragon?
No, I don't remember that.
I got to show you The Last Dragon. But they were my Friday pickups, and that was the same thing. I had to get my parents to go with me to hire them out. And even if I was buying, because when I started buying my ex rentals at a very young age, I had to get my parents to come with me.
Yes, because they were,
to let me buy them.
Yeah.
And they got really annoyed because it was always the same thing I wanted.
Yeah, but and this is what I mean about the access. Well, to continue on that story of the story. That's what I did. Mum was getting sick of it. She hated it. She felt sick every time she watched it. This is way too gory for me, and that brain sucking scene. She was like, can't cope. But they did it for me, and I remember it came out to buy, and they went to Portrush with my aunt and uncle. They're not really my aunt and uncle, they're my mum and dad's friends, but I called them my aunt and uncle. They went to Portrush and they came home. We stayed with my granny, and they came home and they had bought me the VHS of Starship Troopers.
Oh, very good.
And I was like, it was like a prized possession. Nobody was allowed to touch it. It had to, whenever it went into the VCR, I was like, if I even hear the slightest little crunch, I am gonna die. But what I mean, so I was saying that it's changed because of the access, and then I was saying we're talking about age ratings, and I know when the BBFC came in, which was really whenever VHS really kind of came around,
kind of mid 80s around.
Yeah, because VHS started to become a thing, and then they had to kind of do that whole thing. What the access to film was not simple. So you went into a shop. And I remember whenever, you're from Bangor, some people from the UK will know Golden Discs. You might remember Our Price. Yeah. And I remember going into Our Price, and they had the first 3, the trilogy, the Nightmare on Elm Street box set and VHS up high. Yeah. And they also had the 4 Alien films up high on VHS. Right. And I was like, every time we went in, I was like, I want those because they're top shelf and they say 18. And I think that's what drove a lot of movie fans to be so passionate because as a child, you're watching things that are child appropriate because they put an age rating on it. Now they still do. The BBC still put age ratings on it on their stuff, but it was the fact that they were almost untangible and they were forbidden.
Yes, of
if
course.
Something was rated 18, you couldn't watch it.
There was a restriction that you wanted to try and get past.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they have an age rating on it, but you can accompany anybody under 18 to an 18 rated film, and you can also, on streaming, anybody can just
pop it on.
Flick it on.
Yeah.
You know, it's so much more accessible.
Yeah.
It's a good thing because now people aren't restricted in how they can watch.
Yeah, I mean, like,
but
there
it
was
takes
times
away a lot of what made film fans in the 80s and 90s film fans, because there was always that kind of like...
Well, it's a case of being spoiled today, isn't it? Really?
Absolutely.
That's the thing. It's easy to turn your nose up at anything on Netflix or Prime or whatever because it's just a case of that.
Well, I feel like I don't have that right. Or sorry, no.
In a sense.
Actually, no, maybe I do feel like I have that right because I grew up in an era where things were much less accessible. So when it's on streaming, I can just be like, oh, that's another Netflix movie, so I don't really care.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I think people now are like, we need to watch absolutely everything that's on Netflix because it's so relevant and it's there and everyone's
as if it's going to disappear.
Yes.
No, it's not. And the thing is, when I was in the shops in Belfast trying to buy a videotape at 15 or 16 that was in 18, I was afraid...
And cost 25 quid.
Yeah, and I was afraid that I'd never see this title again. And I would literally approach random strangers and beg of them to go and buy this for me. And have to hide for them to come out. And then I had to trust these people with my money to buy this videotape for me, to meet me out in the main street, to pass it off like some drug deal. But it was just a kung fu movie rated 18. And I just was so blown away. And 90% of the time it worked for me. But, you know, that was extreme, and that was, you know, easier than picking up harder than picking up a remote control and deciding what you're going to watch in your living room.
I used to go into Bloomfield Shopping Centre and say to people, can you get me the... That's how I got the Alien box set, and The Exorcist on VHS. Yeah. Because I was like, will you go in and buy that for me? And a lot of people did.
Yes, yeah.
And my own parents eventually kind of caved at a certain point in my life where they were like, you know what, there's no keeping him away from this. He's going to keep going on and on and on about it until we let him watch it.
My nanny bought me my first VHS. Now, I'd been hiring them, renting them for maybe 5 or 6 years before, but she bought me Ninja USA, Alexander Low Ray, Ninja USA without a cover, so she didn't know what was in there. But it was rated 18, but she knew I was kung fu mad, and she'd seen it in a market for like 3 quid.
Wow.
And that is what triggered everything.
Yeah.
I owned my first 18 rated videotape full of sex and violence and ninjas, and I was every rental shop in probably the most of Northern Ireland knew who I was if I turned up on the doorstep. I just wanted an ex rental, anything.
Yeah.
Any grandparent or aunt or friend or anyone who gave me a couple of quid for a chocolate bar, because grannies all thought chocolate bars cost a $5.
Yeah.
Here's a $5. Go get yourself a bit of chocolate. I would go straight to the video store. Without a doubt. Even if people were giving me a lift home, I'd say, oh, can you pull in here for a second? I just want to quickly check something. It was so selfish when I think about it.
Yeah.
Or I would know that I can use this pound to get the bus to this shop.
Yeah.
Spend 3 quid on an extra rental and use the pound to get back. That's how much I had really worked out what was important in my life back then as a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. But now it's just
I mean, do you even remember
easy?
the actual experience of owning a VHS?
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you had a VHS player, that was cool.
Yes.
But the actual owning of your own
The
VHSs,
tape.
I mean, that was a big deal. And physical media has, I mean, I would hate to see it disappear because I love the tangibility of holding it. I mean, Mum and Dad, like Dad would frequently come into my house and he'd say, oh, you're buying more DVDs. I'm like, no, I'm not. While they're piling up on the mantelpiece and the drawers in front of the television. And he's like, are you buying more? No.
I just haven't tidied
But
up.
see that opening and holding and like, oh my God, it's the most amazing
And some people don't
thing.
get that. People don't, I mean, what I love is the artwork, especially.
Artwork, yeah.
I mean, that for me as a collector is a prime example of what makes it important to own something.
But it's the importance to you, isn't it?
Of course.
And it's the fact that you can grab it and you can touch it and you can say, this is mine. Yep. It's that sense of ownership that a lot of young people are losing.
Yes.
You know, they can just flick a switch, watch it, and be done with it and go back to it.
Well, as I always say to my kids, when the
ownership.
internet goes down, they'll have nothing to watch. I'm coming out here to the studio and I have 3,000 titles to choose from that thoroughly will please me. But, you know, it's a totally different way altogether. And I suppose, I mean, in a sense, yes, they're products of their time. The videotape we all thought was a wonderful thing. When the DVD came along, it blew us away.
It was like...
You know, I had to change my whole store over from video to DVD, and that was...
And balance the two.
Because some people
some
people still didn't have a DVD player because they were quite expensive on their first release.
God, they weren't half.
But what an exciting time to see some kung fu movies. Like when Hong Kong Legends started their label and they were releasing titles on disc that you only had bad copies of on VHS, for example. That was a great feeling again. So it brought back it brought forward a new feeling.
Yeah.
Of that excitement of owning something. Plus, you might have had an extra feature of a trailer or an interview. Nothing massive at the early stages.
Or a music video.
Yeah.
If you got lucky.
And now, if you look back, obviously at what's happening today with the likes of idiots, Blu-ray releases of the same movies, you kind of think those DVDs were really poor compared to what... but it was still such a different way for collectors to really get a piece of this, you know?
Absolutely.
But there was a part of that in between that we didn't get so much here in the UK, and especially in Northern Ireland, such as the VCD, which I have loads of from Hong Kong.
I didn't even know what a VCD was.
Yeah, so a video CD, and it really is a videotape on a CD. That's it. And then there was the Laserdisc, which I wished I was a part of, and I keep seeing Laserdiscs on eBay of Hong Kong movies for quite reasonable, but a Laserdisc player now costs quite a packet.
Really?
Because they're not used anymore. They're just, it's almost like even trying to buy a VCR online now is tricky. I'm lucky.
I wouldn't trust a VCR as far as I could throw
it. I've been good.
They gobbled up so many tapes.
Yeah, mine's has been very, very good, touch wood. But yeah, I mean, there was a moment there was a medium of film that we didn't get here. And in that respect, a lot of titles it kind of bypassed.
Yes,
you know.
Yeah. And we did have a lot of titles here in the UK that just, I mean, that are coming out on Blu-ray now that just never made it here.
No.
There's films that I would be like, Jesus Christ, I never seen that in a video store. I never seen that on TV.
Yeah.
It's so cool to finally actually see this film that people have talked about before, you know, and that was really good. So there's pluses and negatives to the ever-changing way that we're accessing our films. You know, I think that there is that, as you say, that physical media side where we are bringing back and bringing in films that have never been released here on video. And I mean on VHS. We're never even released here on VHS.
Yes.
You know, let alone a DVD.
Well, I mean, the VHS was initially the first time that the general public could own a movie. You know, that was it. There was nothing else really. And obviously we've progressed into some incredible technology that has taken that leaps and bounds. And
it's wonderful to be able to still be able to go online. Now it's online.
Yes,
I remember going into HMV and.
But I was in HMV before the latest lockdown, and to be honest, as nice as it was being among thousands of DVDs and Blu-rays, there was just not the same excitement anymore. I don't know. It's like because they have the same thing over and over and over. There was never anything. I don't know.
I remember, like, whenever I finished work, going into HMV in Bangor and then in Belfast, and I could have spent 3 hours just looking through. You know the way you used to have to
totally
through the A's,
and
then through the B's,
That's
and
right.
then through the season, and then right at the back you'd have found like Anaconda, and you'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
fuck, I really want this on DVD. You know, you had to search really look.
Very, very true.
And it was exciting because you were like, what am I going to find?
And not only that, you had even maybe up to 5 or 6 different shops within a mile, a square mile, offering thousands of titles that you could then. My Saturdays were spent going around all these shops.
Oh god, same.
An X rental, like in the markets, X rentals and all that kind of thing. But today they're just, because everything, especially to us, I think more as speciality collectors, everything has to be online now. You know, there's nothing really.
It's far easier, and it does take away a level of you have the anticipation of it arriving,
of course,
but it does take away that. I do miss that kind of going in and being surrounded by these films and not knowing what you're going to see on the shelves or what's come out.
Whereas
because now you just go online, it says pre-order now. Whereas that never existed for films back in the day.
No,
you know, you just kind of went in and it was released, like a film was released.
Yeah, it was a surprise to find it.
Yes, it's finally on DVD.
Yeah.
And but I think the most negative way that it's changed is streaming. It's made us lazy. It's given us quantity over quality now. There's too much competition going on. You know, it's not just. I remember when Netflix was sent DVDs to your home.
Oh,
and then
Love Film
before it was Netflix.
Yes.
Whenever they were Love Film, and then you used to like send, and I remember they used to send you sampler. Do you remember getting samples through the post to try and convince you to sign up to Love Film? So they would have sent you a DVD.
No, I didn't get that.
So I remember Charlie's Angels came through the door as a sampler when the first Charlie's Angels came out in 2001 or whatever. They sent that as a sampler to get you to sign up to Love Film, but we didn't even have a DVD player, so we couldn't even put Charlie's Angels into DVD player to watch it. So we had to put it into a PC. PC modem to watch it.
My God.
And it wasn't enough to convince mum and dad, but we would have got these samples through from Love Film every now and again. Eventually, whenever the video store started to close down and things like that,
that's when we
Thornley closed down, and then the only one that existed was Extra Vision up at Bloomfields.
Well, that's when we started to wind down and close up, was when Love Film really became, and online renting became a big thing. Yeah. And the owner then wanted to get rid of us as the staff, really, and bring vending machines in.
Oh, how
and
weird
I argued that no, the people, I know my customers, and the people wanted to be like us, the physical copy. They want to come in, they want to touch, look, feel, flip it,
and talk,
and that was just about the movies. But you know, he was like, no, we're getting vending machines in, and within I think 6 months, everything was shut down. Yeah. As in once he got the vending machines in, and we were gone. 6 months later, it failed and everything was lost, you know. But then Love Film had really exploded at that point.
It had. And we finally had a DVD player. We finally started renting off of Love Film. Had to wait 2 days for it to arrive, keep it for a week, and then send it back. And it was all really crazy. But I
actually remember, now you're talking about it, I remember seeing an ad online for my second film, The Knackery, on Love Film, that came up like as a sidebar banner on a website that I was on, and that blew me away.
That's
it
crazy,
was like, what?
That's crazy.
I actually have a photo. I took a photo of it just because I could prove to people. There's my film.
But you know, I suppose getting back to the subject and how the film world has changed. Yeah. It's certainly made things much more accessible to people in terms of what they can watch and having very little restriction on what they can watch.
Almost overwhelming in a sense.
There's an overwhelming amount of content, you know, and even with, you know, the likes of Disney Plus now, and then they've introduced Star, which is all the Fox shows. It's like, well, it's too much, you know. I think you've really,
at this stage now, it's almost becoming what America had in the 90s, because we never had what America had in the 90s. They had so many channels on cable.
That's right, they had cable.
Yeah, because I remember my first time out there and experiencing that. I was like, Jesus, I really don't know what to watch.
Sky and having to wait like 4 hours just for the Sky to like download it, you know, to come from the aerial into your house. So they came that morning, they put it in, they said, it'll be live at 8 o'clock tonight. I remember sitting waiting for Sky to happen, and they were like,
yes, I remember.
It's 8 o'clock. And then you were going through all the channels, you didn't know what to watch. Even that was overwhelming.
Yeah, so you can imagine now with that tenfold what's in...
But is that a generational thing, George? Is that like us coming from a much simpler time into this time to being overwhelmed, whereas now kids today?
Yes, I think it is. Although at the same time, I think there could be a better formatting service available on these streaming services where you can line up what you really want properly rather than just shove it in your watch box and all that. I think there's got to be a much more streamlined way of doing it.
It would be nice if it was done like a dating site. So
Yeah.
you put in your details and what kind of things you like, and then it tailors the streaming service to your likes.
Yeah. Because there's nights that me and the hubby have sat there with the remote
for an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yep, literally flicking through everything we can. Not everything on there, but everything we possibly can before we get so bored that we just go to bed.
This is why I watch DVDs.
Yes,
this is why I continuously buy physical media, and that's why my collection just grows and grows and grows. And it's even the same with TV. Like, I mean, I recently bought all of the seasons of Law and Order and CSI. I mean, they're older shows, but I really enjoy them. And it's just the fact that I don't have to go and look. I just see it sitting and I'm like, I want to watch you tonight. So I'm going to watch you. Rather than sitting going through even Sky Planner, which I don't have. I don't have Sky. The only streaming things I have are Disney and Netflix. And even going through that and then it giving me a genre and going through and being like, yeah, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. I can literally just look around my room and be like, like the other night, sudden death of Jean-Claude Van Damme, haven't watched that and you're just going to watch it now.
Well, that's why I come out here. I don't have any streaming out in the studio. It's all hard copies, and that's what makes it easier. Yeah.
But the other thing as well is obviously, I feel like it's going to be changing ever more. Obviously, the situation we're in kind of universally with this pandemic, it is very much changing the direction of how studios see the future of film.
Totally.
How that's going to be distributed.
They've been caught out. I mean, theoretically, all of last year, the rug was pulled from under their feet. These are the people in control, and suddenly, how do we get our movies out here? They're literally left twiddling their thumbs.
Yeah, so like everyone else in the world was.
Yeah. But they have to now rethink how this, if this happens again, how do we make sure that people still see our movies? I'm sure that is a logistical and also PR nightmare. Totally. How to re-strategize how we distribute our films. Especially theatrical films. How do we do that? Cinemas, we've just heard about cinemas in America. I don't know what they're called. Closing down. All of them are closing, and it would be sad to think that there'd be no more cinema, but. In a way, a part of me, as much as I would miss it, would just be kind of like, as long as I'm getting the content, I don't care how it's distributed to me. I'm so actually used to being at home and watching home media that as long as they keep releasing Blu-rays and 4K, I know, I'll be happy. There's almost a nostalgic magic kind of thing about going to the cinema. But it's the same with VHS. It is. Those things died out. Buy VHS. Cinema has been around since the dawn of cinema. Of course. You've had to go somewhere to watch, and there is something really unique about going to the cinema and sitting with a bunch of strangers that you don't know, where you all get together, you put everything that may cause friction outside, like your religion, your sexuality, your political beliefs, all of that's left outside to watch this movie and escape together. And there's something really nice about that. But I see it dying. I see it going out. Yeah, I can definitely think it would be, if we're lucky to have one main cinema left in the city open, and it becomes like a special treat to go to it almost. But £40 a ticket. At £40 a ticket, I know, right? They'll be charging an arm and a leg, and I think whenever cinemas reopened, I mean, the prices went up that last time. Whenever the first lockdown was lifted, we went, and I was like, wasn't it $6.30? And she was like $7.20, and I was like, what? I only had £7 with me. Granted, our local cinema did upgrade massively with everything is now a recliner and so on and so on. It's very much a VIP treatment, but. That only got to open for 2 months before it closed down again. But yes, there could be a hike in prices again because of this major loss. And it's understandable. And they're not getting the same people through the doors. That's the other thing. And the other thing as well, that they're complaining that the likes of,
whenever Warner Brothers kind of announced that they weren't going to release anything theatrically to certain cinemas or whatever anymore, and they're throwing their heads up. Yes, they're a business and they need to keep alive, but so's Warner Brothers. Everything's a business.
Of course.
One business supplies another business, it supplies another business, it supplies another business. So there's a ripple effect to that, to the whole kind of system shutting down. So, AMC Cinemas, I don't even know if it was them, but using it as an example, AMC kind of saying, oh, well, we hate Warner Brothers, they're going to take away all the theatrical releases, so we'll never show another Warner Brothers film. It's like, well, then you've got to think of your vendors and the suppliers of your popcorn and your drinks. Everyone then, there's a ripple effect in that causes greater damage than just not having that there.
Is this a turnaround for something that's been lost for almost 40 years now? And with these bigger studios perhaps stepping away from the big screens, does that give the likes of ourselves, the independents, the chance to get back on the big screen to help fill the cinemas?
Seats.
Because this was a big thing in the 80s, even into the kind of the early 90s, before the studios really took over all the cinemas. But the 80s, the 70s and the 80s would show in the theatres, would show independent movies. Massively so. And it's something...
Horror was a big one in the 80s.
Yeah. But this is something that has been missing for 30 years.
Underground theatres.
Yes, and we've been very lucky locally to have ours shown. Yes, it's on one screen, but we still get to show our movies on the big screen for whether it's one showing or for a week or 2 weeks, like Battle of the Bone ran for 2 weeks. But from an Xbox. But that was before digital cinema.
Wow.
We had to link ours up through an Xbox and play it.
It's crazy.
It was nuts. But yeah, my point is, if the big studios decide that they're pulling out, rather than the cinemas dying, I think if independent filmmakers get their thinking caps on and start promoting themselves pretty damn well, and the cinemas don't want to really close their doors, there could be a surge in seeing independent films on the big screen again, which would be amazing.
It would be great, because...
I mean, what a choice to get in there and see something you would never imagine seeing.
But it's also what people are comfortable with. A lot of people seem to be quite comfortable with the streaming platform and sitting at home and watching.
Again, it's a generational thing.
It's a generational thing again, absolutely. And, that's okay. As long as we get what we want. For me, I think we've very much lost those days, especially the days that we grew up with are long gone. But I think the world is changing so much. We live our lives online. We live our lives with
unfortunately.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. We live our lives with this convenience of technology, that the thought of having to get out and get into a car, drive somewhere, pay someone and sit down in someone else's seat is just too much of a hassle now. So it's like, I'd rather just sit at home with my feet up on my recliner if you've got one, or your feet up on your sofa if you've got one, or your legs crossing the floor and watching your big screen TV.
I suppose there has become
because TVs have gotten bigger.
TVs have gotten bigger, and yes, you have the home cinema experience. And there's also a lazy aspect of humanity that has come about more so, if any, than in the last decade.
We're going to be like the people in WALL-E.
Of course.
Sitting on our chairs with a screen in front of us, just kind of like with our McDonald's flying down into our laps and, getting fat and lazy. It's a very apt portrayal of the human race.
The right movies in there that I want.
Yeah, right.
But that's a reason why I love coming out here and sitting amongst so much colour, and I love looking at my movies, even if they're not on the screen. I could just sit here and look at these.
I do this. And people find that so weird.
No,
and I've said I would sit, and even if I have something on TV that I do want to watch, a movie, I do occasionally. I'm watching it, but I've seen it before, probably maybe 100 times, so it doesn't matter. And I would occasionally look and then see, the X-Files box set and be like, oh, God, isn't that lovely?
Yeah, because there's a thing. I think.
Or you turn around and then you see the idiots, all the idiots, and you're looking going...
But you can just look at the spine of something here, and the movie runs through your head.
Absolutely.
And your favourite scenes pop up, and that's that's enough of a moment to make you happy. To kind of just go through everything.
I think so, and I think physical media and DVDs and Blu-rays is what's going to keep a lot of part of what made us movie fans happy
Yeah.
and subdued.
I think so.
If they eradicated home physical media, I would be...
It would be devastating.
Really, really... I would be genuinely devastated. And this is what worries me about the likes of Disney Plus. Because Disney Channel were notorious for showing things but never releasing them in home video. Disney are notorious for this.
Yeah.
For not bringing things out on physical media. And then I worry, as a collector of things, I have the entire Infinity Saga. Are they not going to release WandaVision, Falcon, Winter Soldier, all of these upcoming shows onto physical media for then us to have a complete collection?
Exactly. And I think that's
that was very staccato.
Well, but also I think they'd be stupid not to, knowing that the amount of extra money they could make from those sales.
Yeah, but then they want to drive subscribers and
yes,
viewerships
of course
too.
they do. But those subscribers will go
if they
there
release
to
it on Blu-ray, they know they're catering to a specific type of film fan. But it may then people be like, well, I'm not paying $14.99 a month just for one show, so I'll pay $14.99 for one show and I can watch it as many times as I want. Yeah.
Well, it could be, there's many options to get around that, such as a limited edition release.
Absolutely.
Limited numbers, etc.
Well, this is what I go for now, is these limited editions, because they're offering me more, with the recent release of Vinegar Syndrome's Beastmaster, with our video's release of Cronenberg's Crash, and the Idiot I Know We Did Last Summer, and the Van Damme films.
Yes, because they come in the most unique packaging. They're perfect.
They are,
in a sense. And we know,
and they're done.
They're going to go away
like
soon.
Us who are fans.
Yeah, and they're made by fans.
They're made by people who love physical media and who love film, and who. So
I suppose in the broad sense, there's not just us. It's not just us. Sorry, I'm just shifting. It's not just us that are feeling this way. There is people there who also have the ability to create what we want. And
just not fast enough.
Not fast enough. Well, why would we money? It's not fast enough. It's fine. But what my point is that while they're there, I think we're going to be okay. For the time being.
And that's why we need to support them.
Because I think so.
They are providing us with so much of what we want and what we need. So
and it works.
It does work. And does that then lead us on to?
Well, we'll do a quick brief chat on. I think we covered a wee bit of it there, but what's your speciality genre? Obviously,
we know what yours is.
We talked about mine more than enough. It is. Do you know what? There's something, and it's like I'll just be quick on it. There's everyone's always said to me, "What is your drive? What is your love for Hong Kong cinema?" And I don't think I can answer it. There's just something really, really gripping and magical about Hong Kong. And I know in a modern sense, they've died a wee bit and they've resurged. But the 80s and 90s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, early 90s to mid 90s of Hong Kong cinema were phenomenal in so many different ways. And I don't know. I guess it just hooked me in some respect, but.
It could be a cultural thing as well.
It could be
something that's so out of how you lived your normal life.
These
were things that we do not see walking around Belfast.
Well, I was never the kid that grew up wanting to be a cowboy or an Indian as such. I wanted to be a ninja.
Well, I think any real boy wanted to be a ninja. Unless you were a redneck.
I wanted to be a ninja, or I wanted to be Jackie Chan. That was it.
That's ambitious.
I literally just wanted. But he has been my drive my whole life. He has been my inspiration and my hero. So from I was 5 or 6, that has always been my thing. It seems to be kung fu movies and Hong Kong movies, and even just that basic traditional kung fu movie has opened the scope for the Hong Kong horror, the Hong Kong thriller, comedies especially, and every form of action movie. And then that leads into Japanese movies, Thai movies, South Korean movies, which are, they're phenomenal. And the list goes on. And through that, you're even getting a trickle of decent American martial arts movies there. That not so much the mainstream titles, but there is other ones out there. But yes, I think for me, my number one genre and my love is kung fu and martial arts movies.
Yeah.
Especially from Asia.
Yeah.
And what about you? And of course I do love my horrors, etc., because that's what I make, and that, you know, the 80s horror inspired me so much, and that's why I love making my movies like a grindhouse 80s horror. But yes, what about you?
I don't think I have a speciality.
No?
No, I'm like a mid-ring film fan.
Oh, okay.
And if nobody knows what a mid-ring is, think the Infinity Stones.
Or go on to Grindr, you'll be selling plenty of them.
Oh my god, you'll be selling a lot of mid-rings there, wouldn't you? Yeah, I mean, my taste changes with just how I feel.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends on the mood that I'm in, how I'm feeling, if I'm feeling excited.
That's an interesting point. I mean, yes, I do. Inside, I have a lot of American movies, obviously, and I don't mind watching anything, but I know what will make me happy.
Yeah, but you are an expert in Hong Kong film. I mean, you could tell me anything about any of the films sitting in this room and be able to go into a lot of detail.
Yeah.
And that's what makes...
That's my specialty.
That's what makes you an expert. Yes. That's what makes it your specialty genre.
Yeah.
Whereas with me, it's really just a case of how I feel in the moment. I've always jumped from genre to genre and gone through long periods of time of liking specific genres.
Yes.
I love my action films, my American action movies, and I love horror films. You know, I'm a big horror fan. I'm not so crazy about how those types of films are made in any particular way or whatever. I just find them a lot of fun. So sometimes I really don't care how a horror movie, especially a slasher genre, which is my favourite subgenre of the horror genre, I don't really care how they're made. I'm just kind of like, that was so much fun. You know, like I just had a good time laughing at kids making the wrong decisions and getting chopped up, you know. But I would be much more interested in bigger films, like I've gone through the appendices of, you know, Lord of the Rings, and you know, the extensive special features on Titanic and Waterworld with Kevin Costner, and Speed and Die Hard, you know, all of those films that I kind of grew up with. For me, it's not so much, even Showgirls, you know, I'm a huge fan of Showgirls, so I mean, those types of films, Basic Instinct, RoboCop, Total Recall, I'm listing Verhoeven films here.
Yes, I mean, that's for me, they're childhood movies in a sense that I thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, I would have more specialty knowledge in that because those were films that, because I didn't have access to the internet, I researched in great detail.
Yes, of course.
I sought out books, I sought out documentaries, I sought out action figures and toys, and immersed myself in everything that came with that film experience. So that was, you know, the other media, I suppose, that in quotations, the other media that came with all of these things. You know, whenever things like RoboCop came out, Mattel got on board with toys. And, you know, when Transformers came out, Mattel or whoever.
A RoboCop cartoon.
There was a TV series. There was TV movie sequels.
Games.
And it was games. Everything, you know, you became immersed in those things. So much, you know, so much. The Terminator, you know, all of those things. So those were films that I kind of would still seek out further knowledge on and stuff. You know, I bought books on the making of Alien recently and found out information that even from the Alien quadrilogy box set, and I was like, oh my god, I've never said that, or I've never seen that piece of concept art, or I've never seen that. And I always like to visualise what could have been, and what, you know, I do think whenever that, you know, especially with Alien 3, it went through so many different variations.
That's right.
I always like... I always like to imagine what the possibilities could have been and where it could have gone. So that's where my specialty would be lying in films that, you know, I was passionate about. So it's not so much that I have specialty genre. It's just there would be films that I would know and
specialty moods.
Specialty moods.
Yes.
Specialty movies, I suppose, more than anything. Just movies that I have adored that I would know an awful lot about.
Yeah. Well, can you answer this as a last question then? What? Sure. And for me, it's the hardest question in the world. I could probably tell you the meaning of life quicker than the answer to this.
I think I know what the question's going to be.
Yeah. What's your favourite
film? That's like asking an alcoholic what their favourite drink is. As long as they can get a drop, it doesn't matter.
Isn't it a hateful question?
It's the worst question.
Like, how many fucking people need to ask that where you're like, seriously?
What's your favourite movie? I mean, I think actually I did an Instagram post, and I was like, ask me anything.
But don't
And
ask me that.
well, I got, I think, like 14 people saying, what's your favourite movie? And I think my response actually on my Instagram story was, ask an alcoholic what their favourite drink is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where they get the drop from, as long as they get it.
Of course.
I can't answer that question.
It's an extremely
no one can answer
hard.
that question.
No, definitely.
I
don't think anyone that's gotten in so deep as we have.
Yes.
Not there is like Kenny, my husband, could answer that, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Free Willy
just couldn't. Depends what time of night.
That might be too old for him.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Certain people have a smaller viewing window.
Absolutely.
Whereas ours has just expanded massively to
It's
the point where
control.
we cannot.
No.
I honestly could not define what. I could certainly break down maybe the top 10.
I could do a top 10 films.
At a push, maybe the top 5, but not, and that's even hard. The top 5 would be, that would kill me.
No, my top 5 would be easy if I could bulk trilogies in there.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Yeah. It's like, you've got to have little rules and regulations. I could do the top 5 if.
Yes.
It's a deadly question.
It is.
And maybe someday there'll be an answer, but not.
Maybe
not
on my
right now.
deathbed.
Yes.
Whenever
What's your last
that
film
is,
you want to watch?
What's the last movie I want to... Oh, fuck. That would be because I'd be sitting until I actually die thinking, what movie would I actually want to watch before I die?
Yeah.
I'd be dead before the time I had the time
Exactly,
to choose.
to think about it. Yeah.
So, there are films that I will always go back to that I would
Yes.
consider my favourites.
Yeah.
And every so often I'll watch a new movie that I've never seen before and be like, oh, I really like that.
Yeah. But
then I just get this mood where I'm like, oh no, I really
Well,
want to
again,
watch.
it goes back to a nostalgic thing.
What a cinephile?
Yeah.
I'm doing quotations. What cinephile would go, oh my god, I'm actually gonna go and watch Waterworld now for enjoyment.
Just to
People
switch
are like,
off.
I hate it. It's awful. Whereas I'm glued.
I enjoyed it, actually.
It's these films that people hate, like Waterworld or Speed 2, that they zone out and they end up looking on their phone. That I'm like this, leaning forward with my elbows on my knees, watching the TV, and I'm still hooked.
Of course,
because I love it.
There's a reason. There's a reason for it.
Whereas there's a reason why whenever Ma Rainey's Black Bottom came on, I was like going, Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis are really, really good, but so is this Instagram feed.
Exactly, that's what I was like. Okay,
so,
well that was a nice way to finish things, I suppose.
Yeah, it was.
So there we go.
I wonder if anybody can answer that question.
That is it. Yeah, that would be something
what
I'd
is
like.
Your favourite film?
Yeah, I'd like people maybe to post below if they're watching this on our YouTube channel. Just if you have the answer to that. Or is your window as big as ours? And you just I literally think it is the hardest question for me. The hardest question.
The hardest question to ask any film fan.
Yes.
Is what is your favourite film?
Yeah. It's deadly. But yes, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks.
Hopefully next week we'll be back with Girls and Gun.
Who knows?
Girls and Gun special. Who knows?
Who knows what we'll be back with week to week.
Week to week. We hope to get these out week to week. We have a lot to talk about.
We have a lot to talk about. We hope that this was something that I think we both kind of talked about because we wanted to do something that was much more serious and showcased our knowledge and understanding of film much more than sitting and doing a movie review.
We have fun doing our videos, of course.
We love doing our videos because we can act like tits, but I think George and I both would probably agree that we have much more to say on film than,
There's a lot.
than what we get the opportunity to say whenever the camera is rolling. And the podcast we felt was just the most appropriate way of voicing articulately our views and opinions.
You can turn us off, you can pause us, you can fall asleep to the sound of our vocals.
Jesus.
Yes, we definitely have a lot to give.
Yeah.
So join us next week for a little bit of something extra.
Join us two Poofs on our podcast.
Two Poofs on our podcast.
Next week for some more delightful conversation.
Indeed.
And what I would like to put out there is if anybody would like to be a special guest and join in the conversation,
that would be nice.
You can let us know.
You can
You can hit us up on Instagram.
And then you just have to figure out where I live.
Well, no, we can do it over Zoom or something like that.
We can pull something together,
but,
definitely.
we're open to collaborations with everyone, but we also can't wait for you guys to hear our thoughts on so many different topics within the world of film.
Definitely.
So join myself, Mark, and
George
himself, George,
and join
next
us
week.
Join us both on Instagram at head.over.reels and at Movie Misfit, because we both do a lot of different things on our own channels.
Yes, we do.
And then collectively on the Celluloid Misfits. And then
my
obviously,
focus is now, I think, primarily much more on the collaborative together.
Yeah.
Haven't really done much on my own at
Well,
Head Over Reels for a long time.
You might get back.
Who knows?
Yes, and then of course on our YouTube channel, where we have lots of talk, movie news, movie reviews, trailer reactions, and much more.
Audio commentaries, audio visual commentaries.
Audio visuals,
and that's
yes.
just put in the Celluloid Misfits into
YouTube.
And you'll get our channel there. But this here will be on YouTube as well, so as well as on Spotify and
wherever else we can find
Apple Music or whatever. We'll
up to
have
you.
it up on every platform. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Yes, indeed.
And join us again next time. George will have a lovely little bit of outro music going.
I'll try. I'll see what I can do. I'll get the spoons out.
The spoons, clackers. We should do the cap song.